What's good, everybody? Welcome into a BTT Extra. I'm your boy, the coach, and today we have a very special interview. If you watched The Last Word on Monday Night Live on Stadium, you saw him, you heard all of his opinions. He did a great job, but I want to know a little bit more because there's very few people that have participated in the WWE, been a WWE superstar, and then got out. Let's bring him in. Of course, we bring in my partner too, Big Tommy C. We welcome him, former WWE superstar Matt Morgan. Matt, before we even get started, Monday night, I forgot to plug all your stuff. Where can people find you today, your podcast and all that good stuff?
So I do a wrestling podcast weekly where we cover Raw, SmackDown, the pay-per-views, even AEW, believe it or not, on a podcast called Gigantic Pop. And for the boys, they understand where that comes from, right, Coach? Right, when we text each other back and forth on something. That's where the term came from. And the name of our show, Gigantic Pop. You can find it on YouTube immediately. And and that's what I'm still doing with the business today while still being an elected official in the city of Longwood, Florida.
Well, that's where I want to start. Gigantic Pop, find it, listen to it. We'll continue to plug it. I want to start present day, and then we'll kind of go back to 20 years ago. But there's very few people, me, you, The Rock, Stone Cold a little bit, that have been really immersed in the wrestling business and then got out and did some really cool things outside of the wrestling business. When did you know that you wanted or had political aspirations to try to help your community and the communities there in Florida?
I'm going to shorten this as quick as I can. I'm the father of an 11-year-old, severely nonverbal autistic son by the name of Jackson Morgan. And the day my son was born, and not knowing he was autistic, keep in mind, I was supposed to re-debut at the Royal Rumble 2014. My son was born January 7, 2014. I was supposed to re-debut in WWE at the Royal Rumble as a surprise Rumble entrant later in the month of January. I called Vince directly and let him know, holding my son in that delivery room for the very first time, Coach, that respectfully, sir, I'm done. What do you mean you're done? I'm not going to be wrestling anymore. What do you mean you're not going to be wrestling anymore? You built all this stuff that you told me that you've learned and you want to come back, and we're giving you your opportunity. And I said, and I respect you and I love you for doing it, sir, but I begged God for 12 years to be a dad.
We went through
8 bouts of IVF with ICSI. None of them worked. That's $20,000 a pop for folks keeping score at home. And now, by the grace of God, I get to be a dad. Get the freak out of here. So I told him, no, it's time for me to be a dad. And he's like, oh my God, he didn't know like my struggles of being a parent originally. Mm-hmm. I explained it to him. It made sense. He let me out of my deal that was just signed like maybe 2 weeks previous.
Wow.
And let me out. And said, congratulations, and good luck to you, son, that kind of thing. And I called TNA, told them the same thing because they gave me a big help when I left WWE. But, that was my biggest start. And then from there, it just transitioned into like what every parent's going to do. How can I affect the environment my little boy or my child's going to grow up in? And that's when I discovered we had a city commission here in the city of Longwood, Florida. And I started asking more and more questions. And then these residents, my neighbors, started like, bro, I'm not exaggerating this, leaving like Post-it notes on my front door, index cards in my mailbox saying, you need to run for office. And my argument to that was always, I don't follow politics. I hate politics. I hate politicians. I want nothing to do with it. It's so evil and it's corrupt. I don't want to be a part of this ish,
Yeah.
They're like, that's why you need to do this. And I found out we had no term limits in the city of Longwood, and that was one of the major ones that once we had guys in office for 20 plus years.
Wow.
That's what finally forced my hand. Like, okay, in 2017, I'm going to throw my name in the hat and see what happens. I got elected. I got reelected again in 2020, and I just got reelected this past November 2024.
Wow, that's amazing, Matt. Hey, but there was way more to what you were doing besides being a mayor. What has been your passion for the last several years?
Definitely me and my wife both. My wife's the chairwoman of our Parks and Rec committee here in Longwood, Florida. And so together, both she and I created the very first of its kind in all of Seminole County. And Seminole County is a very, very big county in Florida. The first of its kind Walk for Autism Awareness and Inclusion event. We've never had that in this county, let alone community. And the goal with that is not just to walk around the park and say, if he's a jolly good fellow and yay, autism. That's not it. It's to introduce the 7 different vendors I have come there that have services, whether it's speech therapy, occupational therapy, sensory integration therapy, equine therapy, you name it therapy, they're at this event because so many of our younger autistic families don't know these services are right here in our backyard. They just don't know. And my goal was to try, and my wife's goal was to try to introduce this to so many of these autistic families. That's just one. The other is I will be a 19-year recovered opioid addict this April. Major. I overdosed 7 times on opioids, painkillers to be specific. Wow. As a fully functioning addict, to be clear, these painkillers were my oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Point, at least rationalizing in my head it was. So the other thing is I'm part of our Seminole County Opioid Council, and I help create policies and things like that in our community that will help offset people like myself that get written a prescription of painkillers and boom, they're smacked in the face with that addiction versus what we do today with sort of the policies I helped encourage where doctors nowadays here have to not just verbalize to the patient, hey, there's non-habit forming pills that will give you the same pain relief, and physically have to sign off on a sheet of paper between the doctor and the patient that they reviewed that. I was a big part of getting that legislative passed here in the state of Florida, and it's a major win for what could be potential addicts in the future.
I don't think there's a lot of people that obviously we have wrestling fans that watch this show and watch this channel. They don't understand how big of a deal it was back then. The opiates. I mean, all of us were using them. All of us were using them. It was really, really bad. There's some big stars. I don't want to name names, but there were some big stars that lost their careers over these painkillers.
Coach, can I give an example? Not without naming names.
Of course.
So, like when I first got sober, I did a 5-year window of my WWE career. Keep in mind, where I could not get through a 4-hour window without 100 to 120 milligrams of oxy or hydrocodones at the time. That's Percocets mainly. 4 hours around the clock, I would have to take 100 to 120 milligrams worth. Keep that in mind. Wow. And when I finally got sobriety, Coach, it took me an entire year's worth of sobriety away from the business because that's how much my sobriety meant to me, that I could quit this business. I'm not going back until I have this under control. And everyone was trying to push me back to the business, even including my own shrink, my own doctor, my own addiction specialist. And then he's like, you have this great gift. You're 7 feet tall. I'm like, great, good story. I will relapse if you send me back 3 months into my recovery.
100%. 100%.
So it took me about a year. I decided to sign with TNA Wrestling because TNA was based 20 minutes from me where I lived in Longwood, in Orlando, Florida at Universal Studios. And the best part, bro, was they were going to bring me in as a bodyguard for the first year on television. So I get to be on television again for a whole calendar year and get to cut promos with Jim Cornette, etc. I get to learn from him, and I don't have to take bumps. Oh my God, hell yeah!
Sign me up. Sign me up.
And the rest is history. And ended up going on wrestling Ric Flair and beating him at TNA, Hulk Hogan, Kurt Angle, you name the star. I've wrestled and or beat them. Scott Steiner, you name it. I became a bigger name with TNA, ironically, with the Blueprint character I played. Once I had my sobriety, but 1 full year under my belt of addiction before I was willing to go back.
Congratulations, man. And Tommy, the amount of money that I'll never forget the first store that I walked into, and I had wrestled, and I thought I had cracked ribs. And so there was a superstar who was kind of into he owed his guy a lot of money out in California. So he was trying to bring in other people, right? Trying to bring in other, and then they would forgive his debt. And I'll never forget, I walked in, and every time I ordered 50, by the time he got the TV on Monday, they were gone. And I had no clue. I didn't know anything about addiction or about opiates. And 4 weeks in a row, I finally went out here to California, found the guy, and this guy was paying a guy $5,000 a month just to ship them out to guys like Matt or me or whoever else. It was big business, big business. But I'm so glad that you're doing this. I'm so glad that you're almost 20 years. And that's part of the reason we started BTT, was to tell the old stories, because that was our real life back then. That was as much fun as the life was. That was our real life. So let's talk a little bit about, because there's a lot of fans now that may not know even how you got into the business. You played college basketball just like I did. You started at Monmouth, then you went out to Hawaii, played at Chaminade. You played against Duke. You played in the NCAA tournament. How much do you think being a basketball player helped you athletically become a WWE superstar?
And only an athlete could ask me that question, Coach, because you hit the nail on the head. Because I have always argued basketball players, with respect to football players, I also played football, are the best all-around athletes, in my opinion, as far as if you're going to take a blank canvas of a really great athlete and put him in a pro wrestling ring that's never had any training before that, I will argue basketball players would be able to duplicate a body slam, a suplex, shooting the guy off the turnbuckle and giving a clothesline in the corner, etc. Backdrops, you name it, athletically. A basketball player, I think, could do that better than a football player. I always thought that.
I agree.
So that's what happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were also, and a lot of people don't know, you were also a big part of American Gladiators when it was red hot. What did you get out of your experience being with the Gladiators?
That, what was it? Back in 2008, there was a writer's strike with ABC, CBS, and NBC. And because of that, everybody started pulling reality shows out of their wazoo, if you will. And lo and behold, guys, they brought American Gladiators from the 1980s that I grew up watching back to network television. And it was amazing. And everybody and their mother, especially pro wrestlers, were trying to get on and be cast, because it's not a far separation from being an American Gladiator as a gladiator and a pro wrestler, obviously. And I was very blessed to get my audition. And I did it different than anybody else did. I know that for a fact because they told me that at NBC. I walked into my audition where the guy before me was like like what I'm wearing, in a suit and tie and all this other crap. I walked in, I ripped my shirt off, I threw it at the guy who was holding the camera, keep in mind. And I went absolutely apeshit, 1980s style wrestling promo heel. Because the character was supposed to be this beast. They said, we need to cast you for the beast. You have 66 others that are contending for this role. Go, essentially. So I'm like, okay, none of them are doing this, that's for sure. And I walked in there and I made everybody upset. I made them all very uneasy. And I basically threatened everybody in that room. And it worked.
Wow. Well, you know what I remember about American Gladiators? Do you guys remember when Vince hired Mike Adamle to be an announcer for the WWE?
Yeah.
Remember that? And I've never known a place, because Max Bretos, my good friend, was on TV, got paid for a year, was on TV one time. Adamle was so bad. God, I think he's sick now. He was so bad. He was so bad that they started playing into how bad he was. You guys remember that? They made his stupid promos, and I felt so bad. He didn't even realize they were doing it to him. And I was like, how could you be the guy and you come over? And that's why I tell people all the time, not everybody's made out to be a WWE personality, whether it's an announcer or, because Mike Adamle was on one of the biggest shows of all time. He couldn't do WWE. God, and I loved him to death.
Great point, Coach. That's a great point.
You're
100% correct.
You mentioned WWE and TNA, and so many things have changed in the last 15 to 20 years. I don't think Vince ever would have done this, but once he got pushed out, they now have this new partnership with WWE TNA. Joe Henry is in the Royal Rumble. Were you surprised, and how do you think this is going to help the superstars from TNA?
Immensely. immediately, right off the bat, those TNA stars get put on a way bigger platform with way more eyeballs on it. It only helps them. And it helps WWE to act like they've got the finger on the pulse of who's hot. And I'll give you another one, Jordan Grace, the juggernaut from TNA, who came from TNA, is now under WWE contract. And I have a feeling Joe will end up there just the same. But my point is that good for Hunter for being willing to take that experiment and be willing to give. You can say what do you want, Coach. We were there when Hunter was there in the thousands, right? And people were like hating on him and crapping on him. They only cares about his spot and nobody else. And if that's true or not, I don't know because I was on SmackDown. You were on Raw with him. I wasn't. I just know this. That today's Hunter, just legit. I don't have a job with the company, guys. I'm an elected official in my city, and there was in a kiss ass. He seems to me to actually legit want to give these fans, all wrestling fans across the world, what the freak they want, and you can't look no further than the Kevin Owens of the world. That come on, can we be honest here, Coach?
Sure.
Kevin Owens would not even gotten a dark match in 2003. You know I'm not lying or exaggerating.
Not at all. You're right.
Right? It was all about body guys, essentially, and people that can work within that. I remember watching Punk get laughed at in his match versus Amazing Red when I was on SmackDown. And he had the dark match before my match on SmackDown versus Funaki that night. It was a squash match. Luckily.
Funaki. I forgot Funaki.
But like they were laughing at Punk, calling him indie-rific. That's the first time I heard anybody say the word indie-rific. I didn't even understand what that meant. But my point is, it's a completely different place now, different day and age. And I'm not kissing ass because I'm not going to work there anytime soon. I have no reason to. Hunter has done an amazing job of being able to turn the corner on what wrestling fans, in my humble opinion, want to see today.
Hey, Matt, piggybacking off of that, back in the day when you were trying to get in, now the WWE does deals with college athletes.
NIL deal? Brother, my wife right now could have still been eating out my NIL deal.
Well, my question to you, how important was Ohio Valley Wrestling when you wanted to get into the business?
Enormous. I was in there too, legit. James E. Cornette. People like him or hate him. I don't care. That was my guy. And helped me be not just a 7-foot stiff, but he was able to tap into like, hey, dude, you can talk. And I need to give you bullet points moving forward. You need to be Matt Morgan. My character was the blueprint at the time. I was a heel. The blueprint of the perfect athlete, meaning if the Lord Jesus Christ could have a wet dream of who the perfect giant was, shit, you're looking at him, son. 7 foot, 46-inch vertical leap, can bench press 600 and something pounds, yada, yada, yada. Super cocky character. He gave me all that emphaticness and confidence. And it came from being put down in Ohio Valley Wrestling when I first came off of Tough Enough with no experience, by the way, except being able to take a front and back bump. And Jim developed the rest.
Wow. It's funny because we talk about reasons that we forget things. I think I have reasons why I forget certain things. I've actually had in the last year or two, people have asked me about working with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and I've told them I never worked with those two guys. They have sent me video of me in backstage skits with both guys, and I didn't even remember that I worked with them. Swear to God. And I also look right. I don't know if I blocked it out or what, but I also get video sent to me of things that would never fly today, like working with Eugene, who was a character who's on the spectrum. I believe at one point, didn't they try to give you a character that had like a stuttering problem? Like, do you think
I love you tippy tapping around that. No, brother, they full-fledged. Vince brought me into his office.
Okay.
And it was so first I got brought up with Team Lesnar at Survivor Series, the biggest Survivor Series in biggest Survivor Series team in history is the quote. Me, Big Show, A-Train, Nathan freaking Jones, who was Jack.
Oh my God.
I remember him.
And Brock at 6'4" was our midget on the team. Keep that in mind. Okay. And Nathan first quit on tour while we were in Australia. And he said, "Deuces, I'm out. I'm quitting WWE." Nathan, don't go. And then Brock decided to say, "Hey, screw this. I want to go play in NFL out of left field." Okay, that sucks. And I remember Johnny sitting me down and go, like, "Dude, we don't have anything for you after that. Like, we had you be Brock's heater while Nathan quit. Blah, 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 blah. You got to go back to Ohio Valley Wrestling for more, like, tutelage, more training, right?" I'm like, "All right, fine. F it. I'm fine with that. As long as my paycheck doesn't change, I'm good." And I did it. And so I go back to Ohio Valley Wrestling, and they trained me to be a heel for the first time. My first time I was always a babyface there. And long story short, they did a good job training me, but then they brought me back up to they're about to bring me back to television. I was in Chicago, and they said, "Hey, Vince wants to talk to you in his office on the SmackDown show in Chicago." He goes, "Hey, if you ever I'll give you the whole setup, Coach. You'll pop for this if you haven't heard it already. Most people have heard this, so it's notorious, unfortunately." So Vince brings me in his office, and Ace tries to set me up going into his office by saying, "Hey, look, he's got a really big idea. He's really into it. He has a freaking heart on for it. Don't F it up." Okay. As I walk in, Vince goes, "So, big man, have you ever been in a nightclub? This really gorgeous girl. I mean, she's a 10 out of a 10. And you finally muster up the nerve to go walk up to her and introduce yourself. And as beautiful as you thought she was, she introduces herself as hello with a really deep bass voice. Coach."
I've never heard this. I swear to God.
It gets way better, Coach. It gets so much better.
Oh my God.
So, brother, I've already met Vince like 30, 40 different times. I'd see him after every one of my matches when I was on Team Lesnar, etc. So I have a comfortable relationship enough to go, "Vince, as God is my witness, no, that's never happened, sir. Ever. It's never happened, sir." He goes, "No, you're missing the point. Work with me." He goes, "You're not imaginative enough." I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Could you imagine you, 6 feet, whatever you are, 6'10", 6'11", you have all these physical body perfections. And you have that Achilles heel to you that nobody sees coming. And you start to stutter." And I'm like, "With respect, sir, I graduated top of my class in college with a public speaking degree. You sure?" I'm not stupid because Johnny gave me my warning, right? So I'm not being stupidly combative. I'm just saying, "Sir, 6 months earlier, I was on Team Lesnar and cutting promos in your ring. How do we explain I can't talk all of a sudden?" And he goes, "Don't you worry about that. I tell them what they on my life, Coach." That's what he said.
Amazing.
What they want.
Oh my God.
So I said, "No problem. No, listen, Coach." I said, "Okay, let me tell you something, sir. If this is what you want me to do, I'm not going back to Ohio Valley Wrestling. I'm coming up next week on television, and I'm going to knock this out of the park." He said, "I like the cockiness." I like, "Yeah, okay." And then later that same night, he made me come back to this TV office, right, and cut a promo on Cena, who was trying to be a smartass and try to mess with me being a stutterer, right? And I just kept making it more comical and comical and comical to where they both could not stop popping. And then, boom, the stupid stuttering character was born.
That is one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. I never knew that story.
Can I give you one more tidbit?
Please, yes.
And this is Vince. Obviously, now I'm an adult and older. Vince trying to sell the stuttering character. He actually wanted to put this on Brock Lesnar as God as my witness. He said he wanted to find somebody that's jacked and has those great physical attributes, that looks like a warrior, as he put it, but that when they opened their mouth, there was this verbal imperfection.
Oh my gosh! Oh my god!
That's
one of the funniest.
So, Coach, we could have had the next big stutterer.
I just the things that Vince would ask us to do. It seems like a lifetime ago. And I've told the story, I think, a couple of times. I don't know if you heard it, when I had already signed with ESPN and I walked into Rochester, and we all know Kasama, and she's like, "Hey, Coach, do you have any thong underwear?" And I was like, not on me, not on me. And she says, "You need to go out to the mall and try to find some." And I'm like, what the hell for? Literally 3 days prior, I'd signed my ESPN deal. 3 days. And she goes, "Well, it's so I'd never said no, just like you, Matt. We had never said no, right?" So I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm driving to the mall going, wait a second, I'm going to ESPN in 2 months. What am I doing? I drive out. Of course, I find them right away at Spencer's Gifts, zebra print and tiger print thongs. And I get back to the building, and they're in there. They're like, they got nails and stuff going in the wall. I said, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, we're building a wall for you." Vince walks in. He goes, "Hey, pal, have they told you what you're doing?" I said, "No, I have no clue." "Well, we have this great thing. You know how you're running the show right now, and like you're having this feud with DX? We thought this would be hilarious, where they're sitting on a couch, you sit down, you get cocky with them, you stand up, they grab your pants and go, 'Oh, hell to the no,' and then they rip your pants down, throw you headfirst through the makeshift wall that they're building in the locker room, and I just dangle there with my buttocks hanging towards the camera, and they pull out green spray paint." And remember, they went through that phase where they were spraying DX on everything?
Of course.
Yeah, well, that included my ass. And I did it. I did it.
Of course you did, because people will never understand this. I swear to God, folks at home, even if this wasn't your lifelong dream, which it was for me since I was 6, to have a gig with this company, keep in mind, they absolutely brainwash is an understatement.
Yes.
You're trained to do, I'll give you an example. Rip Rogers once told me, "Matt, you're 7 foot, you're jacked, all these are great things. If Vince tells you to go down to the ring with a pink jockstrap across your freaking mouth as a masked marauder, you're effing doing it." And I'm like, "Okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir."
I never have, and I most certainly never will again have a person in my life that I will blindly follow. Tommy, were you ever asked to do anything in your role that you knew that this is a left turn for me, but you did it anyway?
Wow, that's a great question, because I worked ringside from 96 to 02. I'm trying to think. The only thing is we were shooting a thing for WBF, and I was Vince's driver, and Vince, I had the big Continental, right? And Vince comes down. That's when Zubaz pants were in. He has a black coffee. Yep. He goes, "All right, Tom, let's go," right? And I'm driving because I don't want to get the coffee on his hand. And he looks at me. He goes, "You know, you can go a little faster." And I go, "Yes, sir." And I don't go past 10 miles. We got the friggin' toll coming, right? He goes, "I want you to blow the toll." I'm like, "What?" He takes his left foot, puts it on my foot where the gas pedal, floors it, and we blow right by the fucking toll booth. And I'm like, I was an associate producer. I'm like, "This is the boss." I shit my pants. He goes, "Brah!" Wasn't that great?
Oh my God!
That's the craziest thing I ever did with that man right there.
Oh my God, Matt, were you there when they pulled the biggest rib that Vince said it's the biggest rib in the history of the company on me, when they had me arrested by the police in Fayetteville, North Carolina? Were you there yet?
Unfortunately, yes.
I was there for that.
That still, I still have nightmares about that. That
was
as real.
You're a normal human being. Yeah.
I'll never forget you guys. You guys will never, when we're in Vince's office and the policemen are standing there and they're telling Vince, and I'll never forget the time of the day. It was 3:30 in the afternoon, and it was a $10 football pool. Yeah, you remember that? It was like $10 that Briscoe asked me to do, and Briscoe's standing there with Vince and with Kevin Dunn. And they said, well, we got to put handcuffs on him. So can we get like a towel to put over his hands as we walk him out to the police car? And Matt, you guys remember, you guys were out in the hallways, and Vince walks over to his bag of his workout clothes, and he grabs his old jock strap, and he whips it, and it sticks to my face. And I got a jock strap sticking to my face, and one of the cops with two fingers like this takes it off my forehead because I already have my hands in handcuffs. He puts them over my hands. I walk out of the office. The first person I see is the Undertaker.
Yeah.
The shame in getting arrested when you think it's for real. But I mean, I feel like, Matt, we all should like have a show where we just sit around and tell stories like that. We did that somehow we survived.
Coach, it would be the most therapeutic thing in wrestling history.
It really would be.
It'd be phenomenal. Are you kidding me?
Therapeutic because guys talk tough, and guys like Coach talk. I watch all your shows on here, FYI, and Coach talks tough about getting through this ish, etc., etc. He's one of many that have been put through the ringer with total. I'm not trying to be a wuss about this. I played college football, I played college basketball, and I've been hazed. There's a difference between that and the ish we went through with that damn company.
My God.
And it's night and day different. And if I told you everything we all went through, you'd be shocked. And people would be put in jail, if I'm being for real.
I can't tell you. I had 4 straight weeks, I kid you not, where my bag was hooked to a pipe. You know how those arenas have the big pipes like 20 feet up, and you have to physically get a ladder to go up there. And I never said a word to anybody.
Okay, so that one sucks. But Coach, we both know there's way more.
Of course.
Yeah,
you remember Sean Stasiak? Crazy Stasiak?
Of course.
He was on a plane and he fell asleep, and they took his what do they call them that the wrestlers wore, the fanny packs, they took it from him. And if you keep your mouth shut, it's going to magically appear by the end of the day. But he called the cops. And all of a sudden you got cops crawling around the locker room looking for it.
Really?
Yes, that's a true story. They had like one of those little jumper planes from from a house show to TV, so it was all just the boys. And he fell asleep, and they stole it.
Come on, even I could have told you. Come on.
Yeah, they had to. Bruce Pritchard had to call the airlines to get him on the plane to get him home. He had no ID, no credit cards, no nothing.
Wow.
No nothing. That's crazy, but you're right. You're right. Matt, we got to do this again, buddy. This was so much fun, man. That was so much fun. Tell the people one more time where they can find your stuff.
All right, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter at BP Matt Morgan, BP for Blueprint, Matt Morgan. What else? Facebook, just Matt Morgan, with a dumbass blue check mark. And my podcast is Gigantic Pop with myself, Raj Giri, former owner of WrestlingInc.com, as well as my good buddy Glenn. So please check us out at Gigantic Pop.
All right, very good. And by the way, and I mean this, if you guys are still doing that event every year, if you can send us some information that we can promote it on our networks, we would love to help you out. Really would.
Thank you so much, Coach. Thank you a million for that. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. He is former WWE superstar and current deputy mayor down there in the great state of Florida, Matt Morgan. Watch us on demand on The Last Word. You can watch us right here at BTT for Big Tommy C, producer man. I am the coach. This has been a BTT Extra, and we'll see you next time.